Okay. First time outside. This place is pretty huge, huh? Let's begin exploring the director's chambers with an excited smile. Excited expression. The second floor had the main bedroom, rooms for female attendants who took care of their master, and a storage room. Gil didn't want me to enter the rooms since they weren't cleaned, but I nonetheless explored the first floor too. The door to the immediate right after entering the chambers had 4 rooms for attendants and a storage room. The left door led to a dining room with a kitchen large enough for multiple chefs to work at once, plus stairs to an underground storage area. Once the kitchen is cleaned, it would allow you to offer tea to visitors. It would be wise to assemble a tea set, Sister Mine, said Fran with satisfaction as he looked over the kitchen. My eyes were immediately locked on something else. In the corner of the kitchen was something that strongly resembled the oven in the Guildmaster's home. Wait, is that an oven? Is it not normal for ovens to be in kitchens? Asked Fran, confused. The only kitchens in the temple were those assigned to Blue Road nobles, which made ovens a normal fact of life for those who grew up here, but they were still rare to me in Lutz, rare and desired. Lutz, there's an oven here! We have to tell Benno about this. Ooh, Lutz, who was in the process of working with Benno and Mark to open the Italian restaurant, looked around the noble kitchen with sparkling eyes. So, Fran, would it be acceptable for me to bring chefs here after the kitchen is cleaned? Yes, it is normal for Blue Apprentice Shrine Maidens to bring chefs and other servants to their quarters. As I began planning to train chefs here while simultaneously giving food to my attendants and those in the orphanage, Fran brought me back down to reality. As you have not brought a chef with you today, Sister Mine, how will you choose to have lunch? The temple operated on a system where blue priests brought chefs with them to make their food, the leftovers of which trickled down the organization. I couldn't have lunch through conventional means without a chef. I think eating out will be our best option. Please get changed, you two. Changed? I returned to the second floor and took out some bundles from the basket Lutz brought. I placed them on the table and pushed them toward my 2 attendants. This isn't a gift from the divine or anything. This is a gift from me to reward you two for working so hard. You don't need to share these with anyone. They're yours. Thank you, Sister Mine. Wait, what, really? Fran and Gil opened the bundles, their expressions filled with anxiety, happiness, and anticipation. For a moment, they thought they looked entirely like children opening gifts for the first time. Then I realized that this really was their first time. Gil, yes. Fran, wouldn't the High Priest have given him gifts like this? In a place of equality like the temple, it was hard to imagine many gifts being given or received. Although my family was poor, I still received gifts from my parents on some occasions, like my baptism or when I first went to the forest. Fran and Gil had nothing like that in their lives. Hey, these are clothes. Yeah. Changes to them so we can go outside. Really? I've always wanted to go outside. Give me a sec, I'll go get changed. Gil smiled the brightest smile I had ever seen on him make as he hugged the bundle of clothes to his chest. He dashed down the steps, going down multiple at a time. He was so obviously happy that I felt happy too, just from giving him the gift. As I smiled, I turned to look at Fran, who hadn't said a single word. He was quietly looking at his clothes spread on the table, tracing his fingers along the green embroidery with a sense of awe. My heart was tickled at the sight of him embracing his happiness at his own pace. Fran, would you change into these clothes so I can see you in them? As you wish. Fran's cheeks flushed slightly with embarrassment as he quickly walked down the stairs, having noticed that I was looking at him. It was so rare to see the calm and collected Fran get flustered that Lutz and I laughed a little together. Nice to see that they liked the clothes. Lutz glanced at the stairs, then lowered his voice. But what was that about Gil looking forward to leaving the palace? This place is pretty weird, huh? It is. But from their perspective, we're the weird ones. I took off my blue robes, folded them, and put them in the closet so I could go outside. A hanger would be nice to keep them from getting wrinkled from the folds. I'll ask Benno to get some made, I thought, while picking up some of the donation money to fund our excursion. I left the temple with my 2 attendants looking afraid to pass through the temple gates and enter the lower city. Fran, you don't need to worry so much, it'll be fine. As it was his first time wearing something other than his gray priest robes, Fran kept messing with the sleeves and collar, but the dark brown clothes matched his calm demeanor perfectly. Gil's light green clothes radiated energy and looked completely natural on him as he ran all over the place in excitement. Whoa, we're outside! This is just, man, now I'm really glad I became an attendant. In that case, you may express your newfound devotion by speaking more politely. You will bear Sister Mine at this rate. Sure, eventually. He spun his hand around to look at everything, racing toward whatever caught his interest. It was impossible for me to keep up with him while also maintaining my slow pace. In the end, Fran picked me up and carried me while Lutz held Gil back from running off on his own. It feels strange to walk outside the temple. Well, this is my world. You might want to loosen up a bit when you're out here, friend. You'll stand out if you're too polite. It is surprisingly difficult to change the way one speaks. Yeah. Kinda is. Let's guide us to an eatery near the central plaza. It was a relatively expensive place, and apparently one that merchants favored. Rather than using large communal tables, it had several small tables for small parties, which was rare. I could see several groups of people having what looked like business discussions. Lutz had been to the eatery before, so he ordered his recommended food for us. Cheese and sausages, boiled in salt, were stacked high on plates with baskets of thinly sliced bread nearby. We each got our own vegetable soup, too. Time to eat. Huh? That's it? When Lutz and I reached out for the bowl, bread, Gil will give us a sharp rebuke. We froze with our arms outstretched and looked at each other. Did we forget something? You gotta pray before you eat, don't you? Oh boy, here we go. But yeah, like I said, this isn't normal for mine and Lutz when it comes to all this religious stuff, because they've never prayed before a meal, so they didn't know this. Take a listen. O mighty King and Queen of the endless skies, who doth graces with the thousands upon thousands of lives to consume, O mighty eternal Five, who ruled the mortal realm, I offer thanks and prayers to thee, and do take part in the meal so graciously provided. Judging by how Gil fluidly chanted it with his arms crossed in front of his chest, I could tell that the prayer was something these living in the temple always said before eating. I don't know, never heard that prayer before in my life. I guess I'm gonna have to memorize that. Yep, you're gonna have to memorize a lot of stuff, girl. And if she has my memory like I think she is, she's going to have a hard time of it. With Gil and Frank, actually, if she does it every day, then it's going to become second nature. Because there's stuff that I do at work that is easy for me to do because I do it so often. With Gil and Fran's guidance, I tried repeating the prayer before eating. There was no way I'd be remembering it anytime soon. Though I would need to write it on my notepad when I got the chance. I shook off those thoughts and started eating with Lutz, but Fran and Gil made no move to join us. They just sat still in front of their food. What? Aren't you going to eat? Are you not hungry? I asked out of curiosity, and in reply, Fran slowly shook his head. As we are attendants, we cannot eat until you are finished, sister mine, but the food will be cold by then. It looked like Gil wanted to dive in, but was holding himself back due to Fran's presence. He was fidgeting so much he looked like a wind-up toy stuck in place. Okay, this is an order. Eat your food while it's hot and delicious. They had to obey my orders, and so Fran reached for some bread with a reluctant expression on his face. This doesn't sound like the food that they showed in the anime, but whatever. Seeing that, Gil happily did the same. Fran ate with a kind of graceful posture one didn't see much in the lower city. Gil, having been raised in the orphanage as well, also ate relatively politely. Lutz was more aggressive with his food, as he was used to stuffing his cheeks while fighting with his brothers all the time. Perhaps this was the result of an environment where food was shared equally and there was no fighting or stealing from each other. You both have really nice manners. Were you taught them? The orphanage cannot expose the blue priests to unsightly or shamefully incompetent servants, and thus we are taught by our elders how to eat, walk, and so on. Yep, the thing I hate the most is the purification we gotta do before leaving the orphanage. It's not too bad right now, but man, it sucks in the winter. It looks like they're trying to kill us. Thankfully, those who become attendants are given warm water instead of cold. In my opinion, any institution that was concerned about appearances more than anything else was probably a bad place to be. But thanks to their efforts, Gil both looked clean and had good table manners. I continued eating while asking about how differently attendants were treated from orphans when suddenly I noticed Fran's eyebrows furrowing a bit. Fran was used to eating the food of nobles, leftovers or not, and it seemed the food served here wasn't to his taste. He was scrunching up his face just a tiny bit as he ate. Fran, I guess this food is a lot different from what you're used to. I smiled and tapped my brow to indicate I had noticed his expression, which made Fran cover his eyebrows with the hand while forcing a smile. Very much so. My usual meals are much different from this. However, the soup being warm makes it much more delicious. The food that he had been getting from his noble master was of the highest quality, but due to it always being leftovers, he had never eaten freshly cooked warm food before. I don't care about the taste, as long as my stomach's full. We get way less divine gifts now, because all those blue priests left, but a bunch of gray priests got sent back to the orphanage, so yeah. Gil had eaten his fill of the food, but in the end he ate way less than Lutz, despite being around the same age as him. It was possible that his stomach had shrunken from hunger after he was forced to eat less. In that case, I think I'll buy some extra food for your dinner and give to the orphanage. Me going home means you won't get much for dinner otherwise, right? Really? All right, blessed be the gods. It had been so long since Gil had been able to eat his fill of food that he stood up in excitement and struck the purring pose in the middle of the eatery. The once bustling restaurant fell silent and all eyes fell on our table. Oh great, now you embarrassed her. Hold up, don't pray out here. Let's hurriedly dragged Gil out of the eatery. I apologized to the store owner for the commotion, and after adding a little to the bill to compensate, fled from the premises. Please leave the praying to the temple. Nobody prays out here, okay? Just like Les and I don't know anything about the temple, you and Fran don't know anything about the lower city. I warned Gil with a sigh and a shoulder slump of visible sadness. My bad, sorry. Just be more careful from now on, and it'll be fine. I'm not talking about now, and what I'm saying is, sorry for calling you stupid and all that. It seems he regretted how he had acted at the temple. Les laughed and patted Gil's back. We're both ignorant in our own ways. If mine starts acting weird, tell her what she's messing up on. Or tell her what she's messing up. Just like the stuff about praying before she eats, I'll keep an eye on you so you don't do weird stuff either. Gil, some stands over there sell food for travelers. It'd be a good place to buy dinner and a little food for the orphanage. The next gate was connected to the city road, so business was very lively with plenty of travelers. But it was also less safe due to the alley outsiders. We looked at the stands, hoping to finish our business as close to the central plaza as possible. I bought several sandwiches, thin slices of bread with ham and cheese stuck between them, and wrapped them in cloth before putting them in my tote bag. Fran, how many people are in the orphanage? What should I buy for them? There are around 80 to 90 people in the orphanage. Sweets are never given out, so perhaps a crate of easily distributed fruit would be ideal, or some amount of these small grain-like fruits. With the extra height granted to me by Fran picking me up, I surveyed the food stands from above. There were 3 stands nearby selling fruit. We moved between them while I checked to see which had the lowest prices. Oh, a divine gift, said Gil, which made Fran instinctively turn around to me with him. Then we saw him grab a fruit off a pile on a stand and start munching on it. Lex, who had been holding his hand to stop him from running off, was frozen in place with his eyes open wide in shock. Wait, Gil! Hey, you, what do you think you're doing? Oh, no. He's stealing right in front of me. The lady behind the stand punched Gil right... Did you have to do that? You could have just asked whoever he was with to pay for it. Oh, God. Gil right in the face with the clenched fist. He looked at me stunned, still holding a peach-esque fruit known as a prun beer. I immediately had Fran set me down so I could get my money out. I'm sorry, miss. This boy has been a shut-in his whole life and doesn't even know what money is. I'll pay for the fruit, so please don't call the guards. Sorry, miss. I was supposed to stop him from doing stuff like this. After I paid and apologized with Lutz, the lady shook her head in exasperation. Good grief, I don't know where this boy's from, but keep a close eye on him when he's outside. I'm really sorry. Go on, Gil, you apologize too. Huh? Sorry. At my encouragement, Gil stammered out an apology with a thoroughly confused expression. Gil, did that prun beer taste good? Yeah. Gil glanced at his half-eaten prun beer, looking worried. I told him he could finish it since I paid for it, then took out 2 pieces of cloth and used them as bags for tying together 2 ends. Miss, could you put 5 prun beers in each of these? You got it. I bought the fruit for the orphanage at the lady's stand partially as an apology, then returned to the central plaza. I had Gil carry them as punishment. He wouldn't be able to do that kind of thing again with both his hands full, probably. I'll teach you how to use money once I pay you for the first time, but until then, don't touch anything in stores or on stands. All right. We walked north up the main street on our way to the temple. Fran was carrying me, and at some point Lux looked up at me. Hey, mind if I tell Master Benno about this kitchen before we go back to the temple? Go ahead, he'll need to get the ingredients and dishes ready, so the sooner he knows about it, the better. Lutz ran up to Benno's store, which was busily preparing for the afternoon, with lunch having just finished. I had Fran set me down so I could walk leisurely after him. Gil followed behind me while still holding the bags. Hi, Mr. Mark. Hello, mine. The master is waiting for you. I greeted Mark after he came out to see me, then headed up to Benno's office with my 2 attendants. I could see Lutz standing in front of Benno's desk giving his report. The second Benno saw me, he stood up, strode in my direction, and lifted me right up. Fantastic job, mine. A kitchen actually used by nobles will be a perfect reference for the Italian restaurant. Benno rustled my hair so hard that my head bounced back and forth. He was so excited that Fran, who only knew him from the temple, took an uncomfortable step back. I knocked aside Benno's hand and had him set me on the floor so I could sit at the table like usual. It's apparently okay if I bring chefs to the table's kitchen, so I came to discuss whether or not you could hire a chef soon and have him train there. The food he makes in practice will be the main source of food for my attendants, and the leftovers will be sent to the orphanage, so the ingredients won't go to waste. It won't hurt your wallet either if I pay for the food, so I think this is a perfect idea, don't you agree? If it was the duty of Blue Priest to send food to the orphanage in the form of leftovers, I had no reason not to pay for a chef. And if the orphanage was filled with hungry kids like Gil, then personally I wanted to do everything I could for them. That said, after writing some stuff on a board and falling into thought, Benno slowly shook his head. Nah, hold up. Paying for ingredients is part of training chefs. I'll cover that. If I let you pay for everything, I won't have any ground to stand on if you just take the chef for yourself. Yeah. Benno gave a very merchant-like reply, and I just shrugged. If he wanted to pay, that was fine with me. Especially since I didn't have any income at the moment thanks to the mine workshop being temporarily closed for business. Okay, in that case, I'll pay for fitting the kitchen with tools while you pay for the cost of training the chefs. Yeah, I want to set it up so all I'm doing is borrowing the kitchen for training. Alright, let's go see it. Benno cut off the conversation and stood up, apparently wanting to see the oven pretty badly. He looked just like Gil did when he learned he could go to the lower city now. Honestly, that kind of worried me. Now, Mr. Benno, the kitchen hasn't been cleaned yet. It is as Sister Mine says, she cannot invite a visitor to her chambers while we are still unable to serve proper tea. Fran said, and Gil nodded firmly in agreement with me. However, Benno was so excited, curious, and invested in seeing the kitchen that he ignored our objections entirely. He put a fancy coat on over his normal clothes and grinned. I'm not a visitor. I'm a merchant. A blue shrine maiden just got her own chambers and she wants to order some stuff to fill the place out. Nothing odd about a merchant dropping by while it's still a little dirty. And more importantly, I want to see the kitchen before you all start messing with it. Are you saying you'll help us clean it? Huh? You think I can't clean it or something? Well, you'd be wrong. The first job of an apprentice merchant is cleaning the store. Well, that's it for us. I can tell he's not going to change his mind no matter what we say. Benno craves knowledge about nobles so much he would never miss this rare chance to learn more about them and tailor the kitchens. Fran, let's give up. We still need to order a tea set and such after we finish cleaning, so we might as well just take this opportunity to have Mr. Benno help us. Sister Mine? I had lost the motivation to try and think of ways to stop Benno. Every second spent having this pointless argument was a precious second I could have spent reading. You may not know this, Fran, but waste not, want not is a pretty common saying. If Benno wants to help, let's not waste the opportunity. I want to use the time, save time to read books. Fran looked at me with wide eyes, then put a hand over his mouth as if to hold back a laugh. Do forgive me for this, but you cannot enter the book room without me by your side. I do not believe you will have the opportunity to read books if we bring Master Benno to the temple. No! In the end, Benno blew off everything I said to him and basically kidnapped me, lifting me up and taking me back to the temple where I couldn't even read books. Once we were there, he took off his coat and immediately began cleaning, just like he said he would. Wow, okay. We kind of wanted to see Benno clean, to be honest. Everyone else followed his lead. Benno and Fran covered the higher-up places, which required height and arm strength, while Gil and Lutz took care of lower, smaller places. I had neither height nor strength, so everyone treated me like dead weight. As I wept wistful tears for the books I could be reading, I sat at the second floor table and wrote out supply orders while Lutz informed me of what we needed. Let's see, how long have I done? Okay, 17 minutes. Takes me 17 minutes to get through a chapter. Training the chefs. My attendant spent several days thoroughly cleaning the kitchen, making it fit to prepare food in again. At the same time, cooking utensils and the like were brought in, while the underground storage room was filled with firewood and ingredients. With that done, all we needed was for Benno to hire chefs to do work in the kitchen as part of their training. The first day I first found the kitchen, I started making natural yeast at home. I wanted to eat fluffy bread baked by pro chefs. With Benno's help, I went to a glass product store and bought glass storage containers with lids. My idea was to make the yeast with rut ribs, which were in season. I put the glass jar in boiling water to disinfect it, washed and cut the stem off rut ribs, added them to a storage container with sugar and water, then shut the lid. I shook the jar several times per day, opening the lid to aerate it a few times, then waited for yeast juice to develop. It took about 5 days for the rut ribs to completely ferment, and after some filtering, I had my yeast juice. I added water to whole wheat flour, let it rest, stirred it a bit, and done. The yeast, also known as a leavening agent, was finished. Fluffy bread was rare, even in the homes of nobles. I had eaten white bread baked from wheat in the guildmaster's home, but it wasn't the kind of fluffy bread I wanted. If I could ferment the natural yeast properly and make fluffy bread, I would have a powerful recipe on my hands. Yeast would allow me to make bread others couldn't copy. And with proper management, that would be a powerful boon in the market. Well, not that I know if things will go exactly according to plan. I informed Benno that the yeast was done, and he immediately came to my chambers with the chefs. The first was a young man around 20 years old, and with him was a girl in her early teens who was clearly his apprentice. Once they learned enough about cooking, the next chefs would be coming to train. Sister Mine, this is the Gilberta Company's chef, Hugo. With him is Ella, his assistant. Hugo, you will be taught the recipes of nobles here. Pay attention and learn well. Benno introduced the chefs to me, and although I wanted to greet them, I had been told to stay silent and nod. Fran would do all the talking for me. Apparently, I needed to act like a high-born noble given my status as a blue shrine maiden. Hugo and Ella, then. Allow me to guide you to the kitchen, said Fran. I have been told to leave all the cooking instructions to Fran no matter what, so he will be reading instructions off boards I had prepared ahead of time. Gil couldn't read yet, so we had no choice but to leave interacting with the chefs entirely to Fran. What you must learn first is the importance of cleanliness and sanitation. Keep your utensils and dishes clean at all times. Maintain the state the kitchen is in now. Clean your bodies before arriving here. Wash your clothes without fail, and never enter the kitchen with dirty clothes or a dirty body. Understood? Understood. If we beat the importance of cleanliness into them ahead of time, we wouldn't need to repeat ourselves when they went to work at the Italian restaurant. I had no intention of letting the restaurant become one of those places that serve food on hard bread and let customers drop unfinished food on the floor for dogs. Whatever the culture of the city was, I didn't think a high-class restaurant serving noble food needed that kind of culture. I wanted to make consomme first, but Benno wanted to eat the finished food for lunch, so that was postponed for tomorrow. It just took too long to make. Instead, since we are using an oven for the first time, I decided to go with pizza. Or, to be honest, I just wanted to eat pizza. Today, I will instruct you on how to make a dish known as pizza. First, light a fire in the oven. At Fran's instructions, the two chefs collected firewood from the storage room and lit a fire in the oven. It took time for ovens to heat up, so lighting the fire was the first step. They finished quickly since it wasn't really that different from lighting up a hearth. Wash your hands before touching the ingredients. With Benno and me watching while sitting at a table meant for servants, they began making the pizza dough. Fran and I had prepared the ingredients and lined them up in the kitchen counter beforehand like how food television shows often did. Hugo put my yeast, salt, sugar, and warm water into a bowl, then added flour and began mixing it thoroughly, fermenting the ingredients. In the process, he looked up and gave a little sigh. This really takes a lot of arm work, just like making bread does. It would not be wrong to compare the two. After mixing the ingredients well, they will rise on their own. During that time, you will make the sauce and chop vegetables for use in the pizza and soup. He chopped up some peeled pommes, which were basically yellow tomatoes, and cooked them over a low heat while chopping up other ingredients to use as a soup stock. Hugo, I'll take care of the rigors. Ella effortlessly using a knife far too large for me, chopped up the white rigors, which were like white radishes with a garlicky taste. Meanwhile, Hugo chopped up bacon, onion-esque Lonnades, carrot-esque marrons, and some mushrooms as directed. They both chopped quickly with the kind of high speed that only professionals had, fast enough to leave me impressed. Benno, I see that you have brought me even better chefs than I expected. The moment I spoke, Hugo and Ella both jerked fearfully and looked their way. The air in the room froze like ice, despite the fact that I had just complimented them. The stiff look on their faces made it clear I had misspoken somehow. I looked at Benno for help, and he gave me a gentle smile. Your praise is unexpected, but greatly appreciated. Chefs, you have been complimented. The icy atmosphere melted thanks to Benno's backup. Hugo and Ella's expressions loosened up with relief after saying, We are honored to receive your praise. They resumed chopping vegetables with serious looks on their faces. Benno glared at me and suddenly made a gesture that can be translated as keep your mouth shut, a proposition to which I gave a firm nod. Sorry, I didn't expect a compliment to make them freeze up like that. What do you expect, girl? They think you're a noble. After finishing with the vegetables, Hugo prepared the chicken meat. He cut the breast meat into thin slices, then sprinkled salt and cooking wine onto it. Ella prepared tasty herbs that would go well with the meat. You will now prepare the soup. The recipe I wrote was for a salty vegetable soup with flavorful broth brought about by slicing and boiling sausages. I wanted this world to learn that vegetables could add flavor to soup too if cooked properly. Continue using the broth to cook the ingredients. Do not boil the vegetables and then throw away the water. No throwing away the water at all? Fran's instructions left both of the chefs confused. But as they could not defy a noble, they continued cooking with confused grimaces on their faces. Looked just like Mom had in the past when she watched me making soup. Ella, please remove that surface foam. Hugo, the pommes sauce is finished cooking. Please mix it thoroughly with the rigors and the oil. That will complete the sauce. Oh, it seems the dough is about ready. With instructions after instructions coming his way, Hugo deflated the swollen pizza dough, cut it in half, and started stretching it out. Spread the finished pommes sauce on top of the widely stretched out dough, then add the vegetables on top. As Fran instructed, Hugo spread the pommes sauce on the dough, then added bacon, marrons, and mushrooms. On the other side of spread out dough, he also spread out pommes sauce, then added the breast meat, marrons, and herbs on top. With that done, he covered both with plenty of cheese, and then put them in the oven. Usually he put the cheese on first, and then the vegetable with toppings or whatever. I noticed that Ella was watching him carefully, almost as if she was spying on the cooking process. Her eyes were filled with the same ambition and determination that Thule had when discussing sewing with Karina and that Lace had when discovering a new recipe. I cheered silently in support of her. If we had the time, I would have liked to make mayonnaise and use it to make potato salad using potatofuls, but this was their first time using this kitchen, and they were under the intense pressure of cooking while a noble, as far as they knew, watched them. It was likely that things wouldn't go according to plan. I stealthily signaled to Fran to introduce fewer recipes than planned, and he gave a slight nod. The soup appears to be well cooked, so please taste test it and adjust the salt to taste. At Fran's encouragement, Hugo poured some salt into a small bowl and timidly took a sip. The moment it entered his mouth, he opened his eyes wide and froze in place. It took him a long time to swallow it down, probably due to rolling it over his tongue to experience its taste in full. Is this real? He whispered before pouring more and taking another mouthful. Then another. At this rate, we're going to run out of soup. I thought right before Ella slapped Hugo on the back. Hugo, you're eating too much. Does it need more salt or not? Whoa. Right. Hugo looked between the bowl and the pot of soup and shut his eyes tightly. He had probably never tasted anything like that soup before. It would probably be difficult to judge if it was salty enough or if it needed anything added. Just a bit more. I need just a bit more. Hugo pinched some salt with a trembling hand, stirred it into the soup, and tasted it once more. All right. Yeah, careful, dude. You're going to eat the whole dang thing yourself, which would be funny. Let me taste it, too. Ella held out a bowl and asked to taste the soup like a dog waiting on a treat, which looked so funny I had to put a hand on my mouth and stifle a laugh. No doubt the air would freeze over again if I laughed here. Ella took a sip of the soup given to her in one go, and immediately her face lit up. Whoa, what's going on? This tastes so good. This is the vegetables, right? There's sweetness and the taste of the sausage is soaked into the soup, too. I can't believe a little salted soup can taste this good. Calm down, Ella. Hugo held down Ella's shoulders to stop her from jumping with excitement as she raved about the soup at a breathless pace. He glanced at me, then tried to warn her off with a hard look, but she was so excited about the new flavor she didn't pick up on it. How could I be calm? This is a huge discovery, a revolution. I'm begging you, calm down. We're in front of a noble. Ella paled and looked at me. I hadn't said anything, but the air was frozen again. I wanted to say, I appreciate the enthusiasm for your work. Keep it up, but I wasn't sure what a proper noble should do in this situation. Fran walked up to me, so I whispered to him, could you tell them I'm glad to have chefs passionate about their work here, and that I look forward to the meals they will cook for me? Understood, sister mine. Master Benno, the food will be ready soon. Please wait in the master bedroom if you would, said Fran while elegantly gesturing toward the exit. Gil, who was standing by the door, quickly opened it. I slumped over sadly on the inside, having been basically forced out of the room. After getting off my chair, Benno held out a hand to escort me. Fran needed to stay in the kitchen to give instructions, so I fell upon Gil to follow me to my room. He shut the door and walked in behind me. I nearly giggled after seeing his proud expression, which was basically saying, see, I can do my job. My room's table was adorned with flowers and vases, as I had instructed, along with placemats, cutlery, and juice. Gil had prepared all of this while we were in the kitchen watching the chefs. Thank you, Gil, I said. In response, Gil got on one knee with a... That was the posture he made when he wanted to be praised, a silent understanding that had formed over the past few days. You did a good job. You worked very hard, I said, while patting his head, which made him smile in satisfaction. His hair was silky and clean since I had used Rinsham on him yesterday to prepare for the chef's arrival. It felt very nice to the touch. I sat at the table, had a drink, and let out a sigh. Now that I was surrounded by people who knew the real me, I could visibly slump my shoulders and start complaining. Being a noble lady is so tiring. I want to talk. Let me cook with them next time. Give it up to them. This is their opportunity to learn about cooking noble food in a noble kitchen with a noble watching. It's training for them, just like it's training for you on how to act like a noble. Don't let your guard down in the temple, you idiot. I'll do my best. I took deep breaths and straightened my back. Right as I put myself back into a highborn mood, I heard the door to the downstairs kitchen opening. Fran arrived with the food, and Gil immediately moved to the corner of the room. Fran, I would like to have rut ribs for dessert. I had brought the sugar in the kitchen from my own home, as Benno still hadn't gotten his hand on sugar. I was going to need to hold off on sweets until he secured an avenue for buying it. That was fine for now, since summer fruit tasted fairly sweet. But I wanted to have a stable source of sugar by the time the restaurant was established. Fran placed the two different kinds of pizzas on the table with the soup. They looked like fine pizzas at first. At worst, they were a little burnt. The breading was brown with cooking marks, and steam wafted out of the cooked cheese to fill the room with a nice smell. The bacon was still quietly popping a little, and I could see fat dripping off the chicken meat. Both the pizzas looked delicious. Even Benno looked at them with gleaming eyes, his anticipation more than evident. Oh boy, here we go with the prayer again. O mighty King and Queen of the endless skies, who doth grace us with thousands upon thousands of lives to consume. O mighty eternal five, who rule the mortal realm, I offer thanks and prayers to thee, and do take part in the meal so graciously provided. I spoke the pre-meal prayer I had spent days memorizing. Then Benno and I alone began eating. Everyone else would only be able to eat the leftovers in the form of a divine gift. I would rather eat with everyone and simply gracing them with the food as leftovers didn't feel great to me. But such was the role of a blue shrine maiden. My status didn't give me a choice in the matter. Fran served me my food, and I took a sip of the soup. It had a gentle flavor with a distinct taste of the meat and the sweetness of the vegetables, just like the soup I had at home. I preferred my soup to be a bit saltier, but that could wait for next time. This is pretty good, commented Benno. The vegetable flavor really comes out in the broth, doesn't it? Lace seemed very interested in how I make soup taste like this. I had tried to indirectly convey that not even nobles make soup like this, and Benno picked up on it. Oh, isn't that rare of a technique? He gave his soup a hard look. This is pizza. You may consider it a kind of advanced bread. I picked up a slice of the pizza, chopped off the hanging strand of cheese with a fork, and demonstrated how to eat it. Benno did the same with the piece of bacon pizza. How's it taste? So much better than I expected that I don't even know what to say. I had Fran give me a slice of each pizza, and Benno 2 slices of each, then looked up at him. Fran, the rest is yours as a divine gift. Please clear the room until dessert is ready. As you wish. By acting fast, the chefs and my attendants could eat while the food was still warm. Fran and Gil took the leftovers downstairs, and I heard them shut the kitchen door behind them. It wasn't long before Ella's cry of glee echoed through the chambers. They had begun eating almost immediately, it seemed. I could faintly hear their excited chatter. Now, while they were absorbed in discussing the food, would be the best time to have a secret chat. Mr. Benno, do you think this pizza and soup will sell well? I asked while chewing on the food, and Benno nodded while chewing his pizza. Absolutely. This is the first time I'm tasting something like this, and it tastes great. Feels like this bread is softer than the bread I ate at a noble's dinner before, thanks to the yeast. The what? It's a secret that will keep us on top. For example, even if the chefs we taught the recipe were to spread the information around, they won't be able to make the bread like this without us. I was investing in the Italian restaurant myself as well. I had no intention of letting anyone steal my profits. The soup itself is just utilizing the natural flavors of the veggies, so it should be easy for others to copy if they set their minds to it. Once that starts happening, it'll be a battle to see who can make better varieties of soup. Oh, we don't have many chefs to experiment with soup varieties. How is that going to work? We don't need many chefs if we base our soup courses on whatever vegetables are seasonal, I replied, and in response, Benno groaned while scratching his head. Gotta say, I feel like an idiot for worrying about all this on my own. Seems like you'd be able to solve my mountain of problems in a snap. Wait, what problems? Nothing to talk about here. Come to my store when you can. After finishing our food, I rang the bell on the table. Fran and Gil entered the room with dessert in hand. They cleaned up their dishes and set down plates covered in dessert in their places. Fran, did the food satisfy you? I asked, since Fran was more familiar with noble food than anyone else here. I was just making the food I wanted to eat. It had pretty much nothing to do with actual noble cooking. It was very delicious, although it was far from traditional noble recipes. I believe the food will do very well with nobles who enjoy eating new things. Perfect. I can trust you since you're used to eating noble food. The chefs seemed very interested in the food as well, and would strongly like to start making more right away, partly as practice. I believe they will be very fervent workers for us. Everything's going perfectly, I thought to myself happily, but I couldn't help but feel that I was forgetting something. Is something wrong, sister mine? It feels like I'm forgetting something. Do you have any idea as to what that might be, Fran? Forgetting something, you say? Yes, something about the temple, something deeply related to both of us. But Fran and I fell deep into thought with Benno eating dessert beside us when suddenly the door to the room was flung open. This is all your fault. Oh, now I remember. I forgot about Delia. Oh, Delia. Anyway, I'll get this work on getting this edited and everything, and I'll see y'all next time.